So last class we had started off with discharge of the contracts. We have completed the first 3 points, that is discharge by agreement, discharge by performance, discharge by breach of contract. So today we'll be looking into the next three situations where contract is discharged. Point number 4 is discharge by operation of law. The following are the circumstances under which operation of law, unauthorized material alteration, insolvency, merger, and death. So the first point, unauthorized material alteration. If a party to a contract effects any material alterations in a written document of contract without the consent of other party, then the contract has been done with unauthorized material alteration, which is void. So when two parties are entering into the contract or an agreement, it has to be out of free consent, correct? Both must mutually agree. We looked at even in the breach of contract or in the performance of the contract or agreement that both the parties must consent. Even if it is an alteration, both must consent. Even if it's a novation, that is creating of a new contract also, both the parties must mutually consent. That means both are aware of what they're doing with the agreement. But here it is called as unauthorized material alteration. That means only one party is making a material alteration without the communicating the same to the other party. Okay, without the knowledge of the other party, if the one person is doing the material alteration, the law calls it as unauthorized. So the other party has not given permission or consent the agreement to be altered. If it has to be altered, both the parties' permission is required. If one person is making the alteration without the knowledge of the other, then the law does not enforce such contracts. The law says such agreements or contracts are void by law. Number 2, insolvency. Under insolvency, the contract is discharged by the insolvency of the parties to it when the court passes an order of discharge. Now here insolvency means what? Now we have heard that people are bankrupt, right? That means they don't have any kind of cash or bank balance in their name. They're completely running out of money. Is that clear? So the contract is said to be discharged by the insolvency of the parties to it. So even one of the party to an agreement is insolvent, and who has to declare that he or she is insolvent? Court passes an order of discharge. Is that clear? The court has to declare that Mr. X or Mr. Y is a insolvent or order of discharge. Only when the court agrees or gives consent that so and so person is insolvent, then nobody else can enter into the contract or agreement with that party. Is that clear? So the fourth part is, when does a contract come into discharge is during insolvency. One of the party becomes insolvent, then the agreement is unenforceable. Number 3, merger. When a contract with an inferior right gives place to another contract with a superior right, the original contract gets discharged by its merger in the latter. As we discussed yesterday as well, this point, merger is what? When an inferior right gives place to another contract with a superior right. Correct? Now let's say I used to I used to be a supplier of I used to collect raw materials from a supplier. Is that clear? Company used to collect on a daily basis or on a monthly basis raw materials from a supplier. Slowly as the company grew, so the company was only a client for the supplier. As and when the profits increase, the company decides to purchase the entire supplier or the supplier or the manufacturing company itself. Is that clear? So in the first agreement, it was just a client for the supplier, and now the company owns the manufacturing company. Is that clear? Or the other example what we discussed yesterday, if a person is living in a in a home which is taken on lease. He is just a lessee to it. That means he has lesser rights over the house. But now he has, once he purchases the house, he becomes the owner of the house. That means he has more rights. That is called as superior rights over the house. First agreement was a lease agreement where he was just using the home to reside. Second agreement, he is a owner of the house. That means he owns the house. That is the meaning of merger. Inferior right give place to another contract with a superior right. This situation is called as merger. Number 4, death. Death of the promisor results in termination of the contract in case involving personal skill and ability. Now, if I have a contract uh, with a particular, let's say, musician, okay, with I have a contract with a particular musician, I will ask him to come and sing in my particular a function or something, right? I make a contract, you have to come and sing in my program. But then the the person who has promised, yes, I will come and sing, I will perform in your program, unfortunately dies. Then is my agreement any more valid? No. Death of the promiser results in termination. So the very person who has the skill and ability to perform has died. Can I enforce the agreement anytime? No. The contract remains terminated or discharged by law. Anybody else can do if the same singing, then I have to create a new contract with another singer. But this contract with this singer becomes terminated or discharged by the court of law, because this contract can be performed only by whom? Who has a personal skill, ability or a talent. Is that clear? So that's the fourth point. So under operation of law, we have 4 points: unauthorized material alteration, insolvency, merger and death. The next up, point number 5, it is discharge by impossibility. Impossibility is another situation for the discharging of contract. A contract is discharged if its performance becomes impossible. Now here, as the word itself says, impossible. When something is impossible, how can you enter into an agreement with such an act? It's not fair, correct? It's not right. So therefore, the court says any agreement which is entering on a basis of impossibility of performance, then such contracts are void by law. Now, impossibility of performance may be two cases. One, it is initial impossibility. Two, because of subsequent impossibility. Let's look at both of them. What is initial impossibility? It is also referred to as pre-contractual impossibility. It is the impossibility which exists at the time of formation of contract. Notice that word, exist at the time of formation of contract. The same becomes void ab initio. Is that clear? If you remember, when we were talking about contract capacity of parties, right, entering a contract with a minor, minor cannot enter into a contract according to the court of law. So any contract you are entering into with a minor is void ab initio. That means it is void from the very beginning. You cannot enter into a contract with minor. Same case applies to initial impossibility. Example, A agrees with B to discover a treasure by magic. Here, the agreement is void ab initio. Now, on what basis is he discovering a treasure? It is by magic, which is definitely not possible. It is an impossible act, and A and B are agreeing upon an impossible act to perform. Correct? So, the law says no. This is void ab initio. It is void from the very beginning, from the beginning where the parties entered into the contract. That is why this case is called as initial impossibility. From the very beginning, the moment you entered into a contract, basis on magic or basis on some kind of treasure discovered by magic, the court says it is void or it is not enforceable by the court of law. The second part is subsequent impossibility. It is also referred as supervening impossibility. A contracting parties are capable of performing the contract at the time of entering into it. Notice here in the initial impossibility, what does it say? Impossibility which exists at the time of formation. So initial impossibility, right at the time you are entering into the contract itself, is impossibility exists. But here in subsequent, parties are capable of performing when? At the time of entering into the contract. So basically when you're entering into the contract, both the parties are capable enough in performing their obligations or duties. And then what happens? May turn to be incapable due to some reasons. Is that clear? May turn to be incapable due to some reasons which are beyond the control of the parties, are known as supervening or subsequent impossibility. So the contract is valid, it is enforceable by the court of law when they're entering into it. Later what happens, by the time they execute the contract or fulfill their obligations or promises, let's say they have a contract with with a state, right, or with a country, let's say from India to Nepal, we have an export and import trade. It is absolutely legal exporting goods to Nepal, and everything, all the legal formalities have been completed. But then when India has declared a war on Nepal, or Nepal has declared a war on India, then it becomes a alien enemy for us. Can we then export goods to that country? No. India prohibits any kind of goods to be imported from Nepal and any kind of goods to be exported from India to Nepal. Is that clear? So while when they entered into the contract, everything was legal, everything was enforceable by law. But subsequently what happened? The government of India or the government of any particular country decided to forbid certain act or performance. So it is not at the capacity of parties, but the subject matter of the contract becomes void in the eyes of law. Is that clear? So therefore the contract is to be discharged. So neither the export trade can be enforced here. The contract has to be terminated on the basis of subsequent impossibility. Hope it's clear. Discharge by impossibility has 2 points: initial impossibility and subsequent impossibility. Next up, the last one is discharge by lapse of time. A contract should be performed within a specified period. Such period is called as a period of limitation. Now, if A promises to sell his car worth rupees 5 lakh to Mr. B by next month maximum, right? By December 31st is the time period for him to arrange the money and sell the car. Now, beyond this period, this is the time period that is given. This time period is called as period of limitation. If both the parties are not fulfilling their obligations by selling the car or by paying the money, if both the parties are not fulfilling, then the contract by itself will be discharged or terminated based on lapse of time. If a contract is not performed and the aggrieved party takes no action within the limitation period, he is deprived of his remedy of law. Hence, lapse of time terminates the contract. Even if, let's say, A has sold his car but B has failed to make the payment of the car of rupees 5 lakhs, and within that time period, court says in case you have face any kind of damages, any kind of losses by entering into the contract, you can go to the court of law and file a suit against him. Is that clear? Now, if A is not taking any action within that limited period which court has given him, okay, then he is deprived of his remedy of law. He could have taken certain damages by filing a case against B, but if he is not filing within that limited period, whatever the court has allowed him, and then later if he wants to file a case, then the court does not encourage such act. Is that clear? So this contract stands terminated or discharged by lapse of time. So with this, we complete the topic discharge of contract. We studied 6 different discharges of contract. We came across discharge by agreement, discharge by performance, discharge by breach, discharge by operation of law, discharge by impossibility, and discharge by lapse of time. 6 different situations where a contract can be discharged.